Welcome everyone to a special Zoo Notable. I'm PJ with ZooFit, and today I have with me Andrew or Andy Oram-Lewis. He is a zoo enthusiast who has written an amazing book called Land Beavers, Orange Weasels, and other things you hear at the zoo. So again, I've been referring to this book as the Land Beavers book, but really great book. And I heard about you. I'm going to turn it over to you, but I heard about you from our Zookeeper book club. And again, kind of like, oh, a local, author that is writing about zoos. I love to read about zoos. So let me check your book out. And then also what you were doing with the book is amazing too. So Andy, thank you for joining us. Go ahead, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Hello. Well, thank you, thank you for having me on. So yeah, like you say, I've got a copy of my book here as well. I'm fully prepared. It's basically a humour book about everything that you hear people say at the zoo. I can't put it more simplistically than that. Really, it's got comments that I've heard about a range of animals. It's not just based on one animal. It's to have people show me that they've got copies of a book is surreal, and especially if they're people from all over the world. So people from America, Germany, Spain, and all over Europe, as well as the United Kingdom, have ordered the book and have got their copies. So it's brilliant.
Yeah, your book definitely speaks to a niche audience of zookeepers, but also people who just enjoy going to the zoo. And I've been very fortunate myself to be able to have visited several zoos in the UK. So I'm just curious, which did you go to several zoos and hear this, or do you have just a few zoos that you really enjoy visiting, and this is where you got your bulk of your information?
Yeah, so there's several zoos up and down the country that I visited. So I actually started writing the book about 5 years ago, and it just became I started going out with my now wife. So yeah, we were going to different places together, going to on holiday together, and this was in like the first year of being together. So we would go to zoos and things, and whilst we were on holiday, we'd go to zoos within that area, and it was just we just used to laugh about the comments that you'd hear, and not really think about anything more of it. And it was just people making comments. As somebody who goes to the zoo as often as I can, and some of the comments would come across as a bit weird or a bit silly. But as I started going around the zoos, I noticed that there's loads of people commenting on different animals, and there's absolutely loads of content that could be put into a book. And it was just a off the cuff remark to my partner, and I said, "Oh, you could write a book about these comments," and that's where it started. And I was just jotted them down, and there's comments about from a range of zoos all up and down the United Kingdom. We've been up to Edinburgh Zoo in Scotland. We've been down to London Zoo. We've been all over the place, really. There's a local zoo about 10-15 minutes away from where I live. So some of those the majority are probably from the local zoo, to be fair.
Well, excellent. Yeah, some of those off the cuff, I did tag some of my personal favorite. And what I really love is that you don't like highlight anything. It's just, this is all kind of random. But one of my favorites that I saw was like about the lorikeets. Like, oh, I remember those. these ones, they're the rainbow birds. And it just made me smile. Just like, yeah, that's a really great way to remember what a lorikeet is. Those are the rainbow birds. And the other one, it was again about the land beavers and the capybara. Is what they're like, oh, it's capybara that come from South America. I thought it was a land beaver. And then the next comment is, oh my God, it's a big rat. And I laughed because, well, they're not wrong. They're not right, but they're not wrong. The capybara is the largest rodent, which is rats and beavers. And beavers are the largest rodent of North America. So, and that kind of leads me to really what drew me to this, or what I really found fascinating about this book, and that is that these aren't presented in any kind of way that these are stupid questions, or that they're meant, or even that they're meant to be funny, or that they're lame dad jokes kind of thing. They're just things that you heard at the zoo, and you're letting the reader interpret how they're read. And so again, you can, if somebody thinks that like that it's stupid to say that they thought that a Malayan tapir was a cross between a panda and a horse, that's your interpretation of it. Another person would be like, well, I could see why they would think that. If you were seeing a Malayan tapir, that they are, they look like a giant horse that has the panda color. So, while most people know that a panda and a horse could not breed and create something like the tapir, it gives that imagination. So we're not telling people that they're dumb. They're not telling people that they're ridiculous. And I really actually appreciate that, because it's something that I've been really focused on in my own life, about what we call neutral thinking. And that is, there are no stupid questions. There are no bad or good events. It's how we interpret that event that makes it so. So if we're stuck in traffic, for example, someone might be super stressed out because they're late for work, whereas someone else might be just enjoying the scenery, or being able to enjoying the fact that they can listen to their audiobook or their podcast for a little bit longer. So, or because that they left a little bit early, so they're not as worried. And so the same event is being construed differently by different people. And that's exactly what I really loved about this book, is that I get to interpret the ideas a little bit differently, and it changed my perception. As I mentioned, we were contacting back and forth. I mentioned when I was younger, I was wanting to write a book called The Florida Guide to Stupid Questions. I worked in Florida for a very long time as an educator, and then eventually into animal care field. And I would hear questions like, what do you do with the dolphins when it rains? Or the sea anemone bored, and because they're not moving. And so these are things that I would, again, in my brain, I would call stupid, because I'm with these animals all the time. I see them all the time. So obviously a dolphin's not a fish, or obviously the dolphins don't care that it's raining. And so I actually had to start thinking, like, these are people who have never seen a dolphin. These are people who have never experienced an anemone, and they at least know this is amazing. I should, again, taking in a neutral thing. These are people that at least realize that an anemone, even though it looks just like a plant, is an actual animal. And so they're asking if it's bored because it's not moving, not because they're taking it to the sense of like, let's get this a neutral plane and give people some credit where it's due. But really enjoyed being able to, again, appreciate the humor, and also, again, the neutrality of this. And it's something that I really wanted to, as a message to some of the other zookeepers. So you are not you don't work in the zoo, again, just as zoo enthusiasts. And one of the things that I think, being a part of the zoos, is that we do work with those animals all the time. Something that is very common to us is absolutely novel to some of our visitors. So again, appreciate this aspect coming from a zoo enthusiast point of view to give us a good laugh, but also to kind of open our eyes that these are some of the things that people are amazed about with our animals and teaching opportunities.
Yeah, I think I've been going to zoos up and down the United Kingdom for years. I can, for as long as I can remember. And so, I've always been interested in wildlife, in animals, in the conservation efforts that zoos participate in, and so I guess I'm not the normal, random member of the public, but I have picked up knowledge of certain animals, whilst visiting the zoo, and so I think yes, you can, you can be at a zoo enclosure and you can look at the animals and you can say, oh well, what happens to penguins when it's snowing? Do they mind? Or because penguins should be used to snow, but also like I don't know what do red pandas think of the British summer, because the summers over here can be 1 minute really really hot,
Right.
but also it can rain all day. So I think those are the questions that you kind of hear people say more often than not. Maybe not as a meaning to be funny, but just like a curious question, really. But
Mm-hmm.
actually, from, like you say, from somebody who is in the zoo setting on a daily basis, you'd think, well, that's a really stupid question. But actually, I think that question's coming from someone that may think that that's a genuine question to ask. Whereas, the book, it's not intended to, to cause offence or to say people are stupid. There's no comments in there to say that, Barbara said this or Mike said that. So you can't, you don't list the actual person that said the comment, and yeah, so yeah, it's up to the reader's interpretation of how silly or how funny the quote actually is.
Right. And that's again what I love about zoos and what I love about this book is meeting people where they are. So love this also because you're not only again just giving us something to laugh about, to have a good chuckle. These are really cute comments. Some of them from kids are absolutely adorable. And but it is also bringing some awareness. I did have one that slightly triggered me was about the Przewalski's horse, and I was like, do we have to go and see these horses? All horses are the same, aren't they? And I'm like, no, they're not. But again, just even bringing awareness to some of these animals again, for obviously not just zookeepers, but people are interested in zoos, and again, just a good little laugh might learn a little bit more about what animals they can see at the zoo, and then they could go visit their local zoo and see if they can find those animals. Promoting zoos in a really cute and again, as you mentioned, not offensive. That's super super important. And it's not even just that it's excluding people, but it's just if you presented like, oh, these are stupid questions or these are silly, these are ridiculous comments, then people may not be as open to ask those stupid questions and then have that opportunity to learn more about the animals and become educated. I like how you worded it. It's just like, your comment might make it into a book about things I've ever heard, but it's something that could be cute. It could be construed as cute. It could be interpreted as funny, as a dad joke, or as even a cute romantic gesture toward, between two partners, and or even a family-friendly conversation. So I just really appreciate it. And speaking of inspiring people to go to zoos, that's one action right there. It's inspiring people to go to zoos. Here in the United States, our zoos are open, but most of them are at a very low capacity there, and any indoor enclosures are right now are currently closed. I think most zoos are in what we call, again, different phases of reopening for the coronavirus, and hopefully things will get back to normal pretty soon. But are zoos open right now in the UK?
No, so we've had 3 different versions of lockdown. So obviously back in March 2020, everything was locked down, everything was shut, and zoos, unfortunately, obviously came into that equation as well. They were shut between March and about the middle of June. So I think it was just about three months, and then they could start reopening again. But like yourselves, indoor areas were shut, limited capacity on daily entrances, and yeah, so obviously, that's had a massive impact on zoos up and down the United Kingdom and across the world really. We got to September, October time, so they were allowed to reopen with restrictions in place, and then it became apparent that we started getting more coronavirus rates, and the virus wasn't going anywhere fast, which forced the second lockdown. So zoos had to go through this period again, almost like deja vu. We went through a phase where different parts of the country could reopen and under a tier system and things like that. So some zoos could open, some zoos couldn't, depending on their specific rates of coronavirus in that area. And then since Christmas and January, really, we've been in lockdown again, and here we are again, lockdown free. Yeah, and zoos have to remain closed. We've got positive news about vaccines coming out, left, right, and centre. Yeah, and zoos, they're 90% of their income is obviously through visitors actually physically being at the zoo on a daily basis. So there's been talk about a couple of zoos have come out and said, yeah, our losses during this pandemic are already in the millions, and and some zoos have been doing virtual zoo days, so they record different sessions with different animals. So giraffe feeding, lions being fed, and tigers having lunch, and then just general things like that, really, which for me, being quite enthusiastic about zoos is great. I get to watch all of these videos that the zoos are producing with in the comfort of my own home, and but obviously there's a serious element of that where they're struggling for money, basically. There's no other way of putting it. Hopefully they don't, no zoo gets into such a financial mess that they can't reopen, and but that is the real risk that they're facing, really.
Yes, and yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because that, again, what leading us to another thing about this book. Not many people are considering what zoos do for the community, what they do for the animals, and for conservation efforts. As you mentioned, the funding for zoos comes directly from the people visiting. A lot of zoos are what we call nonprofit, meaning that zoos that are nonprofit rely 100% on their members, and their people coming to the zoo have lost, as you said, millions of dollars this year, because even though their zoo is shut down, the animals still need to be fed. They still need to be taken care of, and that costs a lot of money. And then also their partnerships with conservation can't stop, because just because coronavirus happened around the world doesn't mean that poaching stopped, doesn't mean that the pollution has been cut off. So a lot of the work that zoos are doing to help wild animals has still keeps going forward, because they need funding as well. And so again, we had this trickle down effect where what do we do? What do we do to help zoos stay functioning, to help keep the animals fed and still keep funding conservation projects that are so vital for the survival of endangered species? And again, that's where, again, wanting to promote this book, where you come in little tiny things. And I mentioned how incredible this really, really is. But your book is actually helping some United Kingdom zoos. So do you want to talk a little bit about what that process and why you decided to do this?
So the book came first. Obviously, it was during lockdown one, so first part of last year, and then I thought it's a book that I'm quite passionate about, because it's the first book that I've ever published, really. I also thought, well, during this time where zoos aren't open, they're really struggling, is there a way of using the book to make a positive difference? I kind of researched it a bit, and I thought, well, how it's a book, and what can I do to, what can a book do to make a difference? And so it was really difficult to think about how much can I do, how much of an impact will it have? And then I just thought, well, what do I get from sales of a book? Obviously, I get certain royalties from the book, and I thought, well, can I donate the royalties of this book to zoos? Is that one way of doing it? And so I went down that avenue, and I thought, well, it feels a bit unfair if I just do it for one zoo. I can't say that I've got a favourite zoo. There are particular zoos in the UK that I have I'm very fond of. So Chester Zoo, for example, is where I proposed to my now wife.
Oh.
So and Edinburgh Zoo in Scotland is where we managed to go and see the pandas in Edinburgh, and other zoos. There's a local zoo that we would go to on a weekly basis. So there's all loads of zoos that I'm very fond of. So the idea of putting all of this, donating all of this money to one zoo, I thought it just didn't sit very well with me, especially as there's not just one zoo is struggling, it's all of them. I finalised it into 10 UK zoos.
Nice.
It's not. There's a couple on there that on the list that I.
So you're donating your royalties from this book. So if somebody buys this book, that now that money is actually going to be going to these 10 or dispersed around these 10 zoos. Now, do the zoos? How does this work? Do the zoos know that you're doing this, or you just kind of donate to them on like a monthly basis, or based on how the books are selling?
Yeah, so it gets split equally between the 10 zoos, and it's really, the book's been selling, reasonably well. I've let all of the zoos know that I'm raising money for them, and the majority of them were very supportive. A couple of them have actually shared the book on their social media channel, and it's been really, really positive. They've obviously welcomed the fundraising that is going on. I'm trying to raise the bar a bit, and I'm currently raising money for as many zoos as I can. So the seeing as it was quite the first phase of the project was quite successful in terms of it raised over £100
Wow.
in 2 months, and that was split. It was about £120 in total, so that was split between the 10 zoos, and they got £12 each,
Hmm.
which if you split it down doesn't seem a lot, but it's a start, and they welcome however much that I can raise. At the moment, like I say, the first phase was really successful, and money was shared equally between the 10 zoos. But now I want to kind of expand on that and help as many zoos as I can within the United Kingdom and Ireland. So
Well, the real point I getting from that is that you're inspiring others to, first of all, to buy the book. If you want to do something super helpful for you, zoos, again, in the United Kingdom or even around the world, again, buying this book is actually a start. And not even just because some of the money is going to those zoos, but once again, as we mentioned at the beginning, getting a better appreciation. What animals can I see at the zoo? These are some really funny. I want to see why, why does a Malayan tapir look like a cross between a panda and a horse? Go to the zoo and see for yourself why, why they would be called that. What is special about a Przewalski's horse? Go to your zoo and find out. Are there real living dragons? Yes, there are. Go to your zoo and see them. So this book doesn't just help with it financially with the zoos. It helps garner a little bit more support and in a really fun and interactive way. So again, appreciating that. And I do want to make a mention that something that I live with my program is talking about the way of the hummingbird, and that is, there is a story of the hummingbird, the Native American story of a great forest fire where all the animals have fled. You have giant bears and wolves that have fled the forest, and they're all these animals are watching the forest burn, except for one animal. The little tiny hummingbird is flying back and forth from a stream to the forest fire, dropping one droplet of water at a time. And she just keeps going back and forth. And all the other animals are complaining how the smoke is going to hurt their eyes and it's going to burn their fur, and their beaks, their mouths are too small. And finally, the bear calls out to Hummingbird, "Hummingbird, what are you doing?" And her response is, "I'm doing what I can." And that, to me, is the most powerful message. So if people want to buy this book, then that's one step. But also, what are ways that you are inspiring to so many other people? What are some ways that we can support our zoo? Can I just give, instead of getting a latte today, just for today, instead of getting a latte, can I donate that money to my local zoo? And so if everybody were to do something this simple and yet so monstrously big, doing those simple actions, we could all make a huge difference and support a really great institution that is helping animals and the community. So again, I've got my my cat again. He made his rounds.
that's brilliant. If you go back to the book, I mean, it's these zoos all over the world. They're involved in conservation projects. They work with wildlife charities in Africa, in Asia, all over the world. And so those programs that help the wildlife in their natural habitat, they are being funded and supported by zoos. We need to use zoos to conserve and to protect all the animals in their natural habitat. And if this book can do something to preserve the zoos in order for them to continue the conservation efforts that they're involved in, then that's one good thing that comes out of the book. If it supports as many zoos in the UK as possible, then great. Because also it's not all about the animals. Sometimes, you know, these zoos employ thousands and thousands of people up and down the country. You know, they've got, you know, there's zookeepers that go to, you know, do all of these courses, education, universities to be a zookeeper. It's people's lives at the end of the day as well.
Here's a challenge to anyone who's watching. First of all, as a writer, author myself, I understand those struggles. So let's kick it to the traditional publishers who wouldn't take his book, and everybody go buy this book and say, hey, it ended up being a super successful book. There's one thing. Again, big challenge, everybody. Let's show those traditional publishers, but two, also really recognize that what you're doing here, as a self-publisher, even going through Amazon is it's super easy. It makes things super easy and super accessible. So being a UK author, still as an American, I can get a copy of your book. Again, the more people we can get to buy the book, the more we get to raise for the animals and for conservation efforts that zoos are providing. And I love, yeah, we don't want to get political, but yeah, zoos have just, again, an important role that, again, I can't even think of. I think of a zoo as, again, a pillar in the community that it gives people something to do. Well, when we're not closed due to coronavirus, but it educates people, it inspires people, and it really does. It feeds the economy as far as like giving jobs and entertainment and educational venues. So they are super important, not just to wildlife conservation, but to the community itself. So let's support our zoos. One more time, yeah, we can pull up your book, your copy too.
There you go.
One more time, we're going to start wrapping up. How can people get their hands on your book?
So you can get a copy of my book on Amazon. Just a simple search. You can search either my name, which comes up as Andrew Oram-Lewis, or searching via the title. So Land Beavers, Orange Weasels, and other things you hear at the zoo. For now, we'll raise as much money as possible for UK zoos and go from there, really.
Yes, and again, just learning a little bit more about those animals, learning more about how to approach life with again, neutral thinking, how to have some fun with the way we think, and doing, just inspiring us to do little actions to help our community, to help ourselves, and help the planet a little bit. I'll have the link will be in the description down below, guys. So just click on that, and again, grab your copy of Land Beavers, Orange Weasels, and other things you hear at the zoo. Thank you so much again, Andy, for coming on with us, and sharing your book, sharing your process. It's amazing. Thank you so much. And guys, again, remember, we're looking at other books that, again, can change your life in different ways. So if you have a suggestion, please drop down a comment, or again, subscribe so you can always hear some more amazing books, more amazing ideas from books that we've read. And remember to keep eating clean, living green, train positive. We'll see you guys next time.